Your heating bill last winter cost you somewhere between $1,100 and $1,500. That is fuel alone. Add the furnace, add the ductwork, add the maintenance contract, add the replacement you will need in 12 years because the manufacturer designed it to last 15, and yours is already clicking louder than it used to. Over a 30-year mortgage, the total cost of heating your home, including equipment, fuel, maintenance, and replacements, runs $70,000 to $130,000. That money feeds an industry worth $32 to $77 billion a year, depending on who is counting. A rocket mass heater costs $300 to $1,000 to build. It burns 1 to 2 cords of wood per year instead of 6 to 8. It radiates heat for 20 hours after you stop feeding it. Over 90% of South Korean homes use radiant floor heating right now, not as a luxury upgrade, as the default. Every apartment built in the country includes it. The system is 3,000 years old, and Korea never stopped using it. The US building code has no compliance pathway for combustion gas underfloor heating. Not because it was tested and failed, because no one wrote the code section. And in a system where everything must be listed, labeled, and installed per manufacturer's instructions, the absence of a pathway works exactly like a ban. Here is how a 2,300-year-old floor outperforms your furnace, what it cost you to ignore it, and who profits from making sure you never heard about it. Every furnace sold in America carries a number on the box. AFUA, Annual Fuel Utilization Efficiency. A modern condensing furnace scores 95 or 96%. That sounds like 95% of the energy in the fuel reaches your house. It does not. AFUE measures combustion efficiency, how well the furnace converts fuel to heat inside the unit. The number stops at the furnace outlet. It does not measure what happens next, and what happens next is where your money disappears. AFUE does not account for duct leakage. It does not account for conduction through duct walls running through your freezing attic. It does not account for the electricity running the blower fan. The number on the box is a measurement of the engine with the wheels removed. The metric that matters is delivered heat to occupied space. How much of the energy you paid for actually reaches the room you are sitting in? Your 95% AFUA furnace pushes hot air into ducts. Those ducts, if they run through unconditioned space such as your attic or your crawl space, lose between 25 and 40% of that heat before it arrives. The University of Florida Extension documented this range. It is not disputed. So your 95% furnace multiplied by 60 to 75% distribution efficiency delivers 57 to 71% of the fuel energy to your living room. The most efficient furnace on the market may actually deliver less heat to the room you are sitting in than a moderately efficient boiler connected to tubing in your floor. A 92% efficient boiler feeding a hydronic radiant floor achieves 95 to 98% distribution efficiency. No ducts, no leakage, no attic runs. That boiler delivers 87 to 90% of fuel energy to the occupied space. The so-called inferior boiler outperforms the so-called superior furnace by 16 to 33 percentage points where it counts, under your feet. Think of it this way. Your furnace is a space heater with a fan. It makes hot air and blows it at you. The moment it shuts off, your comfort starts to decay. A radiant floor is a thermal battery. It stores heat in mass, concrete, stone, masonry, and spends it slowly, steadily, for hours after the heat source stops. Concrete stores approximately 30 BTU per cubic foot per degree Fahrenheit. A 4-inch concrete slab heated to 80 degrees in a 65-degree room outputs roughly 27 BTU per hour per square foot. After the heat source stops, slab temperature drops less than 1 degree per hour. The Department of Energy confirmed that with sufficient mass, a floor heated during off-peak hours keeps a house comfortable for 8 to 10 hours with zero additional energy input. Your furnace cycles on and off all night. The floor charges once and coasts until morning. There is a second problem with forced air that has nothing to do with ducts. Hot air rises. In a forced air room, the temperature at your ceiling can be 10 degrees higher than at your floor. The warmest air in the room is at the ceiling, where nobody lives. Your feet are in the coldest zone. Radiant heat does not work through air. It transfers energy directly via infrared radiation from warm surfaces to cooler objects and people. The same way sunlight warms your face on a cold day. It does not need air as a medium. It does not rise. It does not stratify. It goes from the floor to you. A Danish researcher named P.O. Fanger proved the math behind this between 1967 and 1970 at Kansas State University and the Technical University of Denmark. He developed the PMVIV and PPD thermal comfort model, the mathematical proof that when floor and wall surfaces are warm, you can drop the air temperature 2 to 5 degrees and feel identically comfortable. His model became the basis of ASHRAE Standard 55 and ISO 7730, the international standards for thermal comfort. Each 1 degree set point reduction saves approximately 3% in heating energy. A typical 3-degree radiant comfort offset yields 9% savings from set point reduction alone before you count the eliminated duct losses, the eliminated stratification, the eliminated blower energy. Fanger published this 55 years ago. The industry's primary sales metric still does not reflect it. You are paying $1,100 to $1,500 a year to push hot air through leaking ducts to the ceiling of rooms you are trying to heat at floor level. Between a quarter and nearly half of the heat you paid for never reaches you. That is not an engineering limitation. That is a design choice, and someone profits from it. The Romans figured this out 2,300 years ago. They called it a hypocaust, from the Greek hupo, under, and kaustos, burnt, burned from beneath. The engineering was centralized and elegant. The prefernium, the firebox, sat outside the building entirely, always external. Workers fed fuel and removed ash from a separate room. Fire never entered the living space. Above the firebox, the building's floor was raised on pilae, short brick or stone pillars roughly 2 feet tall and 8 inches square, spaced about 2 feet apart, center to center. Spanning the pilae, large square tiles called bipedales supported 4 to 6 inches of poured concrete, finished with marble, mosaic, or tile. Total floor thickness was 6 to 12 inches of dense thermal mass. Hot gases from the prefernium entered the subfloor space and spread laterally beneath this massive slab. Ceramic box tiles called tubuli, built into the walls, created vertical channels that pulled the gases upward through a stack effect, a partial vacuum drawing air from the subfloor through the wall cavities and out through roof vents. Zero ductwork, zero electricity, zero moving parts. The Caldarium and Roman bath complexes reached 120 degrees Fahrenheit. The earliest literary reference to a hypocaust-like system comes from the Temple of Ephesus, roughly 350 BC. Archaeological proto-hypocausts at Gordus on Crete and in Magna Graecia, at Gela, Megara Hyblia, and Syracuse in Sicily date to the 3rd century BC. That is 150 years before the man traditionally credited with the invention. Vitruvius documented the system in De Architectura around 30 to 15 BC, the only surviving architectural treatise from classical antiquity. He attributed the hypocaust to Sergius Orata, a Roman entrepreneur active around 95 BC. But the scholar Garrett G. Fagan, in a 1996 paper in Phoenix, demonstrated that Orata was primarily an oyster farmer and luxury goods merchant who likely refined existing Greek technology rather than inventing it. The archaeological record predates him by a century and a half. Surviving examples span the entire empire. The baths of Caracalla in Rome date from 212 to 216 AD. The Stabian baths in Pompeii date to the 2nd century BC and are among the oldest surviving. The Roman baths at Bath in England remain a well-preserved example. The Villa Romana del Casale in Sicily survives with extensive mosaics and underfloor work. Villa Borg in Germany, reconstructed with a functioning hypocaust. Ruins across Italy, England, France, Spain, Germany, Austria, Hungary, Romania, Turkey, Algeria, Tunisia, Libya, Georgia, Syria. Rome lost the technology. Korea never did. The Korean ondol, warm stone channels, directs hot smoke from an external firebox called an agunji through horizontal serpentine passages called gore beneath a stone floor. A freestanding chimney on the opposite wall creates the draft. The critical difference from the Roman design is that where the hypocaust used an open chamber beneath the floor, The ondol directed gases through winding channels that maximize the contact time between hot gas and stone. More contact time means more heat transferred to the mass and more stored energy released after the fire dies. Archaeological evidence at Sonbong in present-day North Korea dates to roughly 5000 BC. Bronze Age evidence from Ungi pushes to 1000 BC. Full-room ondol emerged in the mid-13th century during the Goryeo dynasty and became universal across the peninsula during the Joseon dynasty. Korea's transition was fuel to fuel, not system to system. Wood became coal briquettes in the 1950s. Coal shifted to hot water boilers developed in 1962. Hot water evolved into modern gas boilers and PX tubing today. The floor never changed. The heat source underneath it evolved. They were not alone. The Chinese Kong, a raised brick platform channeling kitchen stove exhaust through internal flues, has roots at the Xinlei site near Shenyang, roughly 5000 to 3000 BC. It is still used in rural northern China today. The Afghan Tabakana channels hot air from a tanner furnace through stone and mud trenches beneath the living room floor. Functionally, it is identical to a hypocaust. Ottoman hammams preserved Roman engineering continuously from antiquity. The Spanish Gloria, a direct hypocaust descendant using underground ducts from an external firebox, survived in Castile from medieval times through the arrival of modern heating. Some remain in use. Klaus Bingenheimer's 1998 study documented 800 to 1,000 heat storage hypocausts around the Baltic Sea by the 15th century, in monasteries, castles, town halls, and private homes. Dense materials store heat and release it slowly. Route combustion gases through mass, not through air. Separate the fire from the living space. Heat the floor, not the ceiling. These civilizations converged on the same answer independently because the physics demanded it. The Villaborg hypocaust still functions after reconstruction. The Roman baths at Bath stood for 1700 years. Your furnace lasts 15 to 20 years and costs $3,800 to $10,000 to replace. Over 1700 years at current prices, that replacement cycle runs to $340,000 to $1,130,000 in furnaces alone. The Romans built one floor. In 1996, David Jump, Ian Walker, and Mark Madera at Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory published field measurements of efficiency and duct retrofit effectiveness in residential forced air distribution systems in the proceedings of the ACE-EE summer study. They tested 24 houses in Sacramento, California. Their finding was simple. Even when duct placement in unconditioned spaces is done pretty well, which is rare, it reduces system efficiency by about 20%. That is the best case. Typical losses hit 25 to 40%. This should have changed the industry. It did not. A 1989 ASHRAE transaction study, Volume 95, Part 2, had already found that ducted homes used 40% more heating energy than unducted controls. Max Sherman and Ian Walker at LBNL subsequently proved that conventional cloth duct tape fails rapidly in accelerated aging tests. California responded by banning duct tape from receiving duct tightness credits in its 1998 Energy Code. The rest of the country did not follow. 20 years later, the LBNL Flex Lab studies, 2016 to 2018, led by Hongyuan Jia, Shufeng Peng, and Philip Haves at UC Berkeley's Center for the Built Environment, published in Applied Energy, Volume 221, tested radiant heating and cooling against conventional all-air systems in controlled laboratory conditions. The finding was clear: 20 to 40% energy savings, with reductions up to 42% in specific climates. Field installations confirm it. A Montana facility documented 33% less fuel consumption than an identical forced air building next door. Minnesota homes averaged 28% lower heating costs. Vermont homes cut oil consumption from 800 to 550 gallons per year, 31% savings. Iowa and Vermont residential studies found 31 to 35% savings. The duct loss research is nearly 30 years old. The radiant efficiency data is confirmed across field and laboratory studies, across climates, across decades. This is not emerging science. It is settled science that the industry's primary metric, AFUE, was specifically designed to not capture. Your heating costs $1,500 a year. A radiant system delivering the same comfort saves 28 to 40%. That is $420 to $600 a year. Over 30 years, $12,600 to $18,000 in fuel savings alone, before you account for eliminated duct replacement at $6,000 to $18,000, fewer equipment cycles, and zero distribution maintenance. The savings exceed the installation cost of the system that produces them. IRC Section R 303.10 requires heating facilities capable of maintaining 68 degrees Fahrenheit at 3 feet above the floor. That requirement is performance-based. It does not specify what type of system you must use. A hypocaust could satisfy it. A radiant floor could satisfy it. A bonfire could satisfy it in theory, if it held 68 degrees. The real constraint is not the device itself. The real barriers are elsewhere. The International Residential Code, Section M1401.1, requires heating appliances to be listed and labeled and installed per the manufacturer's instructions. A custom-built hypocaust has no manufacturer, no underwriter's laboratories listing, and no label. The International Residential Code, Section G2406.2, prohibits fuel-burning appliances in sleeping rooms unless they are direct vent or specifically listed for living space use. The International Residential Code, Section G2427, requires combustion products to travel directly from the appliance to outdoors through approved chimneys. There is no code section that addresses routing combustion exhaust through channels under an occupied floor. The codes assume one path for every combustion product, appliance to chimney to sky. The underwriter's laboratory's listing requirement creates a structural catch-22. No manufacturer produces the system, so no underwriter's laboratory's standard exists. No standard exists, so no listing is possible. No listing is possible, so the system cannot be installed. This is not a safety judgment. It is a procedural loop that freezes out any heating technology that does not already exist as a manufactured commercial product. Here is how the code gets written. The ICC, International Code Council, is a 501c3 nonprofit with approximately $68.8 million in annual revenue. That revenue comes from code book sales, certification exams, training programs, and critically from ICCES, the evaluation service, where manufacturers pay to have their products evaluated. The code development cycle runs every 3 years. Anyone can submit proposals. But the organizations that participate at every stage, submitting proposals, testifying at hearings, and serving on committees, are not homeowners or alternative heating advocates. They are industry representatives with full-time staff devoted to the process. 3 organizations form the architecture. ASHRAE, the American Society of Heating, Refrigerating, and Air Conditioning Engineers, founded 1894, writes the performance standards referenced in virtually all U.S. building codes. Standard 90.1 governs commercial energy efficiency. Standards 62.1 and 62.2 cover ventilation and indoor air quality. Standard 55 defines thermal comfort. ASHRAE has over 50,000 members. Its funding comes from membership dues, publication sales, and its research promotion campaign, with donations from Train US, Mitsubishi Electric, and M-Core Services. ASHRAE's Code Interaction Subcommittee submits proposals directly to ICC codes. The ICC committee supported ASHRAE's position on 19 of 28 proposals where ASHRAE took a position. AHRI, the Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration Institute, founded 1903 as the Ice Machine Builders Association, represents 350 member companies accounting for over 90% of HVAC equipment manufactured and sold in North America. That is roughly $27 billion worth of products annually. AHRI develops performance standards, certifies equipment meets them, and participates on ASHRAE 90.1 standards committees. ACCA, the Air Conditioning Contractors of America, the largest HVAC contractor organization in the U.S., represents 60,000 professionals across 3,000 member companies. ACCA writes the American National Standards Institute approved installation standards adopted by reference in building codes, Manual J for load calculation, Manual D for duct design, Manual S for equipment selection. The chain is self-reinforcing. ASHRAE writes the standards, AHRI certifies equipment meets them, ACCA writes the installation standards contractors follow. State and local codes reference all 3. No contractor license classification exists for thermal mass radiant heating, hypocaust construction, or ondol-style heating in any U.S. state. The licensing system tests and validates only conventional HVAC knowledge. Now try to get a mortgage on a house with no furnace and watch what happens. FHA loans, HUD 4000.1, require heating systems that automatically heat living areas to a minimum of 50 degrees Fahrenheit, provide healthful and comfortable heat, rely on fuel readily obtainable, demonstrate market acceptance, and operate without human intervention for extended periods. A hypocaust fails on at least 2 counts. A home heated only by thermal mass radiant floor cannot receive FHA, VA, or USDA financing. That eliminates the buyer pool and depresses the property value before you finish building it. Insurance closes the next link. Many companies will not insure homes where a wood-burning system is the sole heat source. Homes without central heat often do not qualify for HO3 policies, standard homeowners insurance. A custom hypocaust with no UL listing, no manufacturer, and no actuarial data would be virtually uninsurable through any standard carrier. You build it. You cannot insure it. You cannot finance it. Your buyer cannot finance it. Your property value drops. Your assessor confirms it. Each link reinforces the last. Daikin Industries is over $30 billion globally, and it acquired Goodman in 2012. Carrier Global is $22.48 billion, and it acquired VSman Climate Solutions in 2024. Trainee Technologies is $19.8 billion, up 12% year over year. Johnson Controls and York are over $27 billion in building technologies. The broader U.S. heating and cooling sector reaches $129.6 billion annually. There are 117,449 HVAC contractor businesses, employing 604,402 people. Roughly 3 million heating and cooling systems are replaced every year. Retrofit and replacement drive 62.5% of the equipment market, growing at 7.1% annually. Service contracts command 55% of HVAC services revenue in 2025, growing at 8.3% per year. The industry is actively shifting towards subscription model recurring revenue. Every home heated by thermal mass radiant floor is a household that exits the replacement cycle permanently. No furnace purchases, no duct replacements, no service contracts, no subscription revenue. A $129.6 billion industry cannot afford to let that pathway exist. Now, carbon monoxide. The concern is legitimate. Emperor Julian reportedly suffered carbon monoxide poisoning from a hypocaust. Korea's experience with coal briquette ondol was catastrophic. Between 1965 and 1976, gas leaks from ondol accounted for 54.2% of accidental carbon monoxide poisoning incidents. In the 1960s, carbon monoxide poisoning from ondol killed more people than all infectious diseases combined in Korea. At peak in the 1970s and 80s, an estimated 2,000 deaths occurred annually, but the causes were specific and identifiable. Cracked floors in degraded systems. Coal briquettes produced far more carbon monoxide than wood through incomplete combustion. Sealed windows during sleep in poorly ventilated rooms increased risk. Korea solved it by eliminating direct combustion gas contact entirely. The hot water boiler ondol was developed in 1962. The gas heats water. The water heats the floor. Combustion products never touch the living space. The U.S. Building Code did not write safety standards for combustion gas underfloor systems. It did not set inspection criteria, material requirements, or carbon monoxide monitoring protocols. It wrote nothing. In a system where the absence of a pathway functions as a ban, nothing was all it took. There are 3 ways to put this floor in your house. They range from $300 to $48,000. Each one works. The cheapest is a rocket mass heater. It is the closest functional analog to a hypocaust that someone can build today. Wood drops by gravity into a J-shaped combustion tube. The fire burns sideways toward an insulated vertical chamber called a heat riser, reaching 982 degrees Fahrenheit or higher. At those temperatures, smoke and creosote combust. The exhaust leaving this system is extraordinarily clean. Hot gases rise into a steel barrel, typically a 55-gallon drum, enclosing the heat riser, then travel through horizontal metal ducting embedded in a thermal mass bench or floor. Cob, stone, masonry. The gases surrender their heat to the mass as they travel. By the time they reach the chimney, exhaust temperature has dropped to 140 to 190 degrees Fahrenheit. The mass radiates that stored heat for 20 hours or more. DIY cost, $300 to $1,000, as low as $50 to $100 with salvaged materials. Ernie and Erica Wisner have built over 700 of these systems, led more than 50 workshops, and authored the Rocket Mass Heater Builder's Guide. Peter Vandenberg in the Netherlands designed the open-source Batchbox rocket and measured carbon monoxide readings of less than 50 parts per million, sometimes 0. The Liberator rocket heater, founded by Darren Small in Missouri in 2012, is the only UL-1482 tested and EPA-compliant rocket heater on the market. It burns pellets without electricity. Users report heating 1,500 to 3,000 square feet with 1 to 2 cords of wood per year versus 6 to 8 for conventional wood stoves. You sit on the bench 4 hours after the last stick of wood burned. The surface is warm, not residual warm, stored warm. The mass beneath you holds yesterday's fire and spends it tonight. The thermal battery metaphor is not a metaphor here. It is the literal mechanism. The same principle the Romans used, dense material absorbing heat from combustion gases and releasing it over hours, built with $300 worth of materials in a weekend. The second option is a masonry heater. This is the legal thermal mass path, IRC section R102 and ASTME 1602 compliance. A masonry heater burns a large charge of wood rapidly at 1100 degrees Fahrenheit or higher through maze-like internal channels inside a massive masonry structure, weighing at minimum 1,760 pounds. That is the ASTM definition. The masonry absorbs the heat and radiates it slowly for 12 to 24 hours after the fire goes out. 1 or 2 30 to 60-minute fires per day heat a well-insulated home continuously. Efficiency reaches 85 to 90%. Combustion efficiency tops 95%. Particulate emissions average 2.9 grams per kilogram, far below EPA Phase 2 wood stove limits of roughly 6 grams per kilogram. Masonry heaters are EPA exempt because the 1988 Federal Register noted they rely on clean-burning air-rich conditions. Professional installation runs $25,000 to $35,000. But DIY kit options range from $1,000 to $7,000 for the core. Eric Moshier at Solid Rock Masonry in Duluth, Minnesota, third generation with over 800 projects, builds and teaches. Tempcast sells modular soapstone kits. A small contraflow heater can be built for roughly $900 in materials. The third option is what Korea does. Hydronic radiant floor heating uses PEX tubing embedded in or under the floor. Hot water at 85 to 130 degrees Fahrenheit circulates from a boiler. There are 3 installation methods. In-slab, tubes cast directly into concrete, offering the best thermal mass and most closely matching the ondol. Staple-up, tubes fastened under the existing subfloor with aluminum heat transfer plates. Over subfloor panels, prefabricated panels from companies like Warmboard. Frank Lloyd Wright encountered ondol-style heated floors in Japan in 1914 and wrote in The Natural House that the indescribable comfort of being warmed from below was a discovery, and that there is no other ideal heat, not even the heat of the sun. He adopted radiant floor heating in his American buildings in the 1930s, installed cost ranges from $6 to $22 per square foot. A whole house with a new boiler is $13,700 to $48,000. Materials only for do-it-yourself are roughly $2 per square foot for tubing and plates. That is $4,000 for a 2,000 square foot house. PEX tubing lasts 30 to 50 years. A boiler lasts 10 to 20 years. Major manufacturers include Uponor, which has $1.41 billion in revenue, and Watts Water Technologies with $2.25 billion in revenue. Other names are Warmboard, REHAU, and Warmly Yours. In Seattle, the Bullitt Center, called the greenest urban office building in the world, uses radiant heating and cooling. In September 2023, Liability and Green Builder Media launched a joint venture building net zero houses using Uponor in-floor radiant systems for the first carbon-negative, LEED Platinum community in the US. You wake up in January. Your feet touch the floor. It is warm, not heated air warm, the kind that vanishes the moment the fan stops. Stored warm. The concrete beneath the tile absorbed heat from yesterday's water cycle and is still spending it. There is no sound, no fan, no click of ignition, no dust moving through a register. The room is 66 degrees, and you are comfortable because every surface around you is radiating at 78. No ductwork, no stratification, no allergen circulation. The Department of Energy states directly that people with allergies often prefer radiant heat because it does not distribute allergens like forced air systems can. The American Lung Association endorsed radiant heating through its Health House program. 42.6 million Americans live with hay fever or asthma. Legal pathways exist if you know where to find them. The International Residential Code, Section R104.11, the Alternative Materials Provision, allows building officials to approve any method not less than the equivalent in safety, even if the code does not specifically address it. Owner-builder exemptions exist. Michigan Public Act 407 of 2016 explicitly allows homeowners to personally install heating systems. Saguache County, Colorado has no building codes and hosts one of the highest concentrations of off-grid builders in the nation. Montana exempts residential buildings under 5 dwelling units from state permits. Portland, Oregon is the breakthrough jurisdiction for rocket mass heaters. Ernie and Erica Wisner developed formal guidelines with Portland's Bureau of Development Services, creating a 1-week approval process. The critical practitioner strategy across every jurisdiction is to present the system as a masonry heater. Follow ASTME 1602. Avoid the word rocket. A rocket mass heater costs $300 to $1,000. A masonry heater, do it yourself. Core costs $900 to $7,000. Hydronic radiant, do it yourself. Materials cost $2 per square foot, $4,000 for a 2,000 square foot house. Your current system will cost you $70,000 to $130,000 over the next 30 years. The floor pays for itself before your next furnace dies. A hydronic radiant floor system installed at full contractor price, $13,700 to $48,000, with 28 to 40% annual fuel savings, pays itself back in fuel alone within 7 to 15 years, and runs for 30 to 50 years on the original tubing. Hydronic radiant systems are durable and efficient. At Tier 1, cost is $300 to $1,000 and a cord or two of wood a year. Korea heats 90% of its homes this way. The average Korean is not making a radical lifestyle choice. They are living in a building that was designed correctly. Your furnace is not a building component. It is a subscription. A 15-year subscription that auto-renews at $3,800 to $10,000 per cycle, plus $1,100 to $1,500 a year in fuel, plus $350 a year in maintenance, feeds a system that loses a quarter to nearly half of its output before it reaches you. The industry that sells you that subscription wrote the code that makes the alternative invisible. They did not have to ban it. They just never wrote the section that allows it. 23% of American households keep their homes at unsafe temperatures because they cannot afford to heat them. 1 in 4 low-income families spends more than 15% of income on energy. Black households spend 43% more of their income on energy than white households. Hispanic households spend 20% more. Native American households spend 45% more. The floor that fixes this has existed for 3,000 years. The code that excludes it was written by the companies that bill you monthly. The radiant floor handles your heat. But every wall in your house is still a liability. Insulation that degrades, siding that needs replacing, a structure with a 50-year expiration date built into the materials. A wall made of earth and nothing else has been standing for over 1,000 years. It costs nothing. It insulates itself. And the building code says you cannot build one. That story is next.